So the topic I wanted to talk about tonight is what I'm calling the new spiritual awakening. So I've talked before a little bit how it feels like things have shifted, right? It feels like something is kind of different in the air after the Trump years and then COVID-19. It feels like something kind of broke loose, if you know what I mean. And I think a lot of people are feeling this, and a lot of people are reacting with fear and anger. So if you look out in the world right now, it seems like there's a lot more anger than there used to be. Definitely, if you look on social media and just things like insurrections in the Capitol. So it seems like a lot of people are responding to this change, this shift with fear and anger because it's something different. And so a natural response is fear of the unknown. And often that fear is expressed through anger. But then there's a lot of other people who are feeling this and feeling it as more of kind of an awakening. Like things are different, things are changing. And so I've been feeling this for a while, and kind of wondering if I'm a little bit crazy or maybe it's just wishful thinking. I tend to be pretty optimistic, so I'm just kind of playing out this fantasy in my head of humanity's waking up. We just entered the age of Aquarius, so maybe things are looking up. But then I recently became aware, my therapist actually pointed me towards this guy named Matt Kahn. He has a bunch of videos on YouTube, and he's saying the exact same things that I've been feeling, that I've been feeling around me and that I've been experiencing in my life. So that's kind of confirming what I've been feeling already. So that's giving me confidence to start talking about this and at least feeling I'm not totally alone and crazy in these thoughts. Because this other guy is talking about them, and he has like 166,000 followers on YouTube. So the things he's saying are resonating with quite a lot of people out there. So I'm feeling a little less crazy about the things I've been feeling, a little less feeling maybe I'm not totally overly optimistic about what's going on. So this awakening, yeah, it kind of feels like there's a big shift coming, the kind of shift that we haven't seen since, say, the Enlightenment a few hundred years ago, when in a very short span of time, humanity, a huge change in thought swept through humanity, and feudalism broke apart, making way for capitalism. And I know capitalism right now, as it's being expressed in our world, has a lot of problems that, it's not working great for everyone, but it's way better than feudalism was. I mean, under feudalism, you just had a really small, even smaller group of people that benefited greatly from it. And then you had serfs who were essentially almost slaves, just having to work all day long. And there was no option for upward mobility for people in the lower classes. So, but then in a relatively short span of time, feudalism was swept away and replaced by capitalism, which is based more on ideals of human equality. Even though it's not perfect now and it has a lot of problems the way it's being played out now, it was a lot better than feudalism. So that was a big jump forward in the evolution of humanity, in the evolution of our economic and social and political institutions. And so now it feels like there's a similar shift coming. And um, maybe it's time that we can start thinking about moving past capitalism into something that's even more based on even stronger ideas of equality between humans. And so, along with this shift that's happening, there's also a shift in spirituality and the type of spiritual paths and approaches that are best suited for humanity at this point. Up until now, a lot of the spirituality, which I can speak of from experience, from the experiences I had with my teacher, there was a lot of sense of what Matt Kahn calls blaming the experiencer. So in these old paradigms, if you're not enlightened yet, if you're not having a mystical experience, if you're not able to manifest your dreams in your life, it's because there's something wrong with you. Either your mind is not highly evolved enough, or your vibration is not high enough, or your chakras need cleansing, or your vision board needs more clarity or something. There's so in all these old, whatever particular path it was, there was all these similar ideas that if it's not working for you, there's something wrong with you. And I know from my personal experience, I always had this sense that the reason I wasn't enlightened yet is because I wasn't disciplined enough. I wasn't, my mind was too disorganized, and I was wasting too much energy pursuing worldly matters. And it definitely, and I want to start off by saying that my teachers were great. And after, from studying with my teachers, my life was made, definitely was made, that was vastly improved, both objectively and subjectively. So I want to start off by saying that I'm eternally grateful to my teachers, and my life is, I wouldn't be where I am now if I hadn't studied with my teachers. But at the same time, I'm noticing now in retrospect that a lot of the ways in which their teachings were structured kind of made it easy to adopt these self-critiquing mentalities. This idea that there's something wrong with me, and that the reason, and I'm not, I wasn't a good enough student. And so under this, with this shift that's occurring in spirituality, it's based completely on unconditional love. So unconditional love for ourselves and unconditional love for all of humanity. And the the recognition that we're all in this together. Humanity, the fate of each individual is tied up with the fate of every other human out there, and we're all equally human. We're all equally valid. We're all deserving of all of the rewards and riches that are available in this, on the planet right now. And so this is kind of, so these are, this is something I've been feeling myself, and then hearing this confirmed by someone else just makes it feel very real to me, and it's very exciting. Okay, well, I'll talk a little bit more about this idea of unconditional love. So I think, I don't know, I don't think either of you were here when I went to this breathwork retreat about a month ago, or a couple months ago now. I had an experience there with unconditional love, and it was a very profoundly moving and transformative experience. It started with the breathwork sessions, which allowed me to access and process a lot of repressed emotion that I had inside me. And so I think a lot of times when we can't feel this this new awakening, or we can't feel, when it's hard to feel unconditional love in our hearts, a lot of the reason is because our hearts are kind of full and blocked with a lot of repressed emotion from that we've accumulated throughout our entire lives. Because our society is not very permissive of expressing negative emotions, particularly sadness, uh, especially in men, but also among women. I mean, women are a little bit more allowed to cry in public, but not too much. And especially men are frowned upon from expressing any kind of public sadness. But most negative emotions also, we're kind of taught in, our society expects that when you're around people in polite society, you're supposed to just put on a happy face and be professional and get back to work. And so we're never really taught how to handle and process our negative emotions and allow these emotions to we're never taught how to feel them in our bodies and allow our bodies to process them and express them. So a lot of us wind up with a lot of repressed emotions that kind of fill up in our bodies and block our hearts, block us from being able to connect with our hearts and feel our hearts. And especially for sensitive people growing up in this country, we're often forced to repress a lot of our feelings. And so over time, that becomes a problem. It stops us from being able to feel our hearts. It stops us from being able to feel the love that's all around us all the time. So at this breathwork retreat, these breathwork sessions are a very useful tool for accessing and processing emotions. And so I had at the sessions there, I had some very profound experiences, accessing these emotions and letting them out. And so I was feeling very open and free. And then I had this uh, another experience that kind of just developed spontaneously later, happened sometime Saturday night, early in the morning or late Saturday night, with with a healer who was there. And for the first time that I can remember, really, I felt a profound experience of feeling unconditional love, feeling the unconditional love of God, of the universe, of the people all around me. And it was a really beautiful experience. And my heart uh, just felt very full of love and was just completely wide open. And then for several weeks after that, I was just kind of walking around totally high on unconditional love. And during that time, every um, it seemed really easy. It seemed to make a lot of sense that this idea of unconditional love is really powerful for the world and really a good medicine for what the world needs right now. Because so many of us, so much of the fear and the anger that we see out there in the world is because very few of us have had many, if any, experiences with unconditional love, with feeling someone, another person or another being, just radiating unconditional love to us. And so I think as part of this kind of new wave of spiritual awakening is a spreading of the awareness of the power of unconditional love. And once, and so it has to start with first unconditionally loving ourselves and being able to accept ourselves fully. And part of that is examining ourselves fully and becoming fully aware of all of our selves, all of our what's commonly called the shadow. So taking a honest look at our shadow, at all of those urges and desires, which we often think are sinful or something to be avoided. But when when we can change our view of ourself and fully accept ourselves, fully accept all aspects of ourselves, even those parts of ourselves that we've been taught to be ashamed of or fear, or we've been taught that we're not supposed to express those parts of ourselves. But after once we can accept all those parts of ourselves and fully love all those parts of ourselves, then it's much easier to look out in the world and start to unconditionally love the world and unconditionally love all the people in it. And when we meet fear and when we meet anger with unconditional love, there's a possibility to transform the world, transform the other person. And now with unconditional love, you still have to have boundaries and you still have to take precautions for your safety. I'm not I'm not advocating being completely irresponsible and walking into the inner city and just trying to hug everyone you see. It might turn out okay, but it might not. But so, you have to express unconditional love still under reasonable and safe conditions. But it's an interesting experience to start experimenting with meeting everyone you meet with unconditional love. And I know I'm finding it's easier and easier that when I can remember and feel the unconditional love within my own heart, it's much easier to greet the world with unconditional love. And people usually respond pretty positively to that. Because I think a lot of us just want to be accepted for who we are. And when we accept the people around us, people are usually pretty appreciative of that. And so that's why this this new awakening built on unconditional love. I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about this from multiple different teachers or multiple different guides, and I think it's going to be popping up all over the place. But I mean, almost all of the criminals out there, almost all the predators out there, the reason they're predators is because they never experienced unconditional love in their life. I mean, it's from their upbringing. They were just raised in environments that where unconditional love is a foreign concept, and then that's all they know, and they just perpetuate the cycle, and goes on and on. I mean, I think Donald Trump would be a very different person if he had experienced unconditional love in his childhood. But from the little I've heard of his upbringing, sounds like it was a pretty toxic and caustic upbringing. And that explains a lot of the way he is. So, yeah, I think. I mean, it sounds naive and it sounds kind of frou frou or whatever, but a lot of the problems in the world could be fixed everyone if everyone had access to feeling unconditional love. You know, a lot of the fear, a lot of the pain that causes people to lash out at others, it causes people to hurt others, can all be traced back to a lack of unconditional love.